Hey guys, it is May the 21st, 2024. And today's video I want to talk about my last drink. And the reason for talking about this today is in the comments, when I was replying to the comments this morning, someone had asked if I could talk about my last drink and then the follow-up after that, basically the last like 72 hours leading up until I went to the hospital. And I've never really gone into a lot of detail about that period of time. I've talked about that little space of time before I went to the hospital, and never really went into a whole lot of detail about it. So I figured, this is probably a good idea to talk about. And this morning, after I saw that comment and said, that's probably a good idea to talk about, I decided to go back into my Google Images and go back to that period of time. I really wanted to just try to get a reminder, just look at pictures I had taken around that period of time, just kind of get a good grasp on what had happened during that certain period. And I gotta tell you, it was kind of tough looking at that. Going back and looking at those images. I took a bunch of pictures while I was in the hospital. I looked at those. I looked at some images leading up to the date when I ended up in the hospital. And looking back at those images really brought back a lot of memories. Just remembering what was going on during that period of time. My Jeep had just broken down, one of the U-joints in the wheel. I was headed out to a job one morning. This is about 2 weeks leading up to me getting sick. I was leaving that morning to go to a job, and the U-joint in the wheel just broke, and the Jeep wouldn't drive. So I had to have it towed off that morning, and I remember being so hungover that morning. I was actually relieved that my Jeep had broken down, even though it cost me $1,000 to have the Jeep repaired. I was relieved because I felt so horrible that day, and I'll never forget because after the tow truck driver came to my house, picked up the Jeep, I got somebody to come pick me up, and I went to the store and got a bunch of alcohol. And I came back home and drank that afternoon. Well, I started drinking that morning because they had come that morning, picked it up at 10 o'clock. And then after that, I got somebody to come get me. Went to the liquor store and then started getting drunk the rest of the day. And then, about a week later, I went and picked my Jeep up. And then I had told my wife, I said, I don't want to have to deal with this again of, having a car breakdown. We live so far out in the country. There's just no way of getting anywhere without a vehicle. And I said, look, I really want to have a van. I wanted a van for my business. And I found the van that I drive, and I went and purchased that van. And I bought my van, 2 weeks before I got sick. Looking back at those pictures, I'm remembering all this stuff now leading up to that event. I had an enclosed trailer as well that I had for my business, and I had sold that when I purchased the van because I was going to have all my equipment in my van. And I just remember that period of time. I was buying and selling a whole bunch of stuff. And, when I had that money, like the trailer that I sold, I think I sold it for like $4,000. I had all this cash. I remember just going berserk with the alcohol during that period of time. I had gone to the liquor store and just purchased a whole bunch of booze. And, looking back now, it just brings back all these memories of my consumption during that period of time. I was drinking very, very, very heavy right there at the end. A lot. And at that point, right there at the end, I was probably drinking a half a gallon of vodka every day, looking back at it now. I remember getting like a half gallon and just drinking. There would be that much at the bottom of the bottle after I would get finished with it. And I remember passing out and then waking back up and then just getting the bottle and just going right back at it again. You know, I would fall asleep at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, wake up 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, and then just go back and make another drink. And I did that. I would wake up in the middle of the night and make myself drinks, because the hangover would be so bad. I would feel so horrible. But anyway, I'm kind of getting off topic here. Going into that my last drink and that time period, I remember the night that, you know, my last night of drinking. I was here at my house. I had been drinking all day that day. I'd actually gone and done a job, a really big job that day, and I had made a lot of money. I was just looking at my Google Images, and the day that I got sick, I had actually taken a picture of a check that someone had written me for a job I had completed. That was on a Friday, I think. And I just started drinking really, really heavy after I got done with that job. The job was really far away. I had a long drive home. I remember the conversation. My daughter had gone to the mountains with my parents and my niece. They had gone on a trip up to the mountains, and I remember being on the phone with my daughter. I called her after I got finished with that job. I was drinking a drink on my way home. You know, I had poured a drink and mixed it up on the way. And I remember driving down the road and talking with my daughter, talking with her. You know, they were up in the mountains. I was talking about what they had done that day. I'm drinking my drink on my way home. You know, I'm just excited because I was done. It was the weekend, and I knew I was going to be drinking the rest of the weekend. Well, that night I got home and just got sloshed. And, you know, I drank really, really, really heavy. And I woke up the next morning and, you know, as usual, I woke up and I remember exactly what happened that morning. I got up, it was about 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. It was still dark, I remember that. I got up, I walked downstairs to our little downstairs area, like the mother-in-law suite down there. And I've talked about this before, but I would often, I think I just talked about this past Sunday, but I would go outside a lot to throw up so my wife wouldn't hear me making noise. And I walked out that side door. I remember leaning over the black railing right there and throwing up into the pine straw. And I was really, really, really sick that morning. I remember feeling, you know, a lot worse than normal. And I had pancreatitis multiple times before this. I just never had been diagnosed with pancreatitis. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I knew something was going on, and I knew it probably was correlated with my drinking. You know, I've blamed it on all kinds of other stuff in the past. You know, I would say I hurt my back doing something, and I had a pretty laborious job that I did too. So, you know, it wasn't something strange for, you know, for me to have hurt my back. So that's why I always said, you know, I hurt my back doing my job the day before, and I had done a really big job the day before. I ended up sick the next morning, and my back was killing me when I woke up that morning. You just get this, it's so hard to explain, but I mean, it just feels like somebody's stabbing you in the back with a knife or a sword or something. I mean, it's just so painful. And like I said, I got up that morning, I threw up over the railing outside into the pine straw. There's a rose bush right there. And I remember leaning over the railing and throwing up, and then going inside. I laid down on the couch. My back was killing me. I could not make it go away. I went and grabbed a couple of Advil, laid back on the couch, and I went ahead and made myself a drink that morning. And I tried getting the drink down, and it just would not go down. Every time I take a sip, I'd throw up. And I kept trying to get the drink down because you guys know what I'm talking about if you're a person who drank in the morning, especially after a really heavy night. You know, it's so hard to get that drink to go down. But I kept trying to get it down, I just kept throwing up and over and over again. I finally said, I just can't do this. So I spent the rest of that day laying on the couch downstairs, watching TV. I remember my wife had a bunch of errands to go run and stuff to do, and I told her I'm just going to stay here for the day. I don't feel well. I laid on the couch all day long. I remember I kept getting up and like walking around thinking that was going to make my back stop hurting. I was taking Advil all day. I remember at one point I tried to drink again. It would not go down. So I just kept throwing up. And then that day ended. I remember staying up the whole night. Basically, my back was killing me. I was super nauseous, still vomiting, couldn't eat anything. I couldn't even get liquids down. I was very dehydrated. I woke up the next morning, I think it was on a Sunday, still very, very ill. I laid in the bed the whole next day. I remember my wife had something she had to go do that day. I was supposed to go with her. I ended up staying home that day again. I remember getting up and walking around my backyard, thinking that was going to help my back feel better. I tried everything, and it just would not work. I was putting heating pads on. I was getting in hot baths. I was putting cold packs on my back. I was putting Bengay on my back. I mean, all this stuff, and the pain would just not stop. And I couldn't stop vomiting. And at this point over that weekend, I still was not throwing up the black stuff quite yet. I didn't start throwing up blood until that Monday. I'm pretty sure it was a Monday. So that whole Sunday, I was sick. I laid around the whole day, nursing myself, trying to feel better. I just wasn't feeling better. And I remember that Monday morning, my wife, I'm pretty sure it was a Monday, but my wife went to leave to go to work. I know that she left to go to work the last day. And I was laying in the bed, and she got me some drinks and stuff and kind of set them beside me on the bed. And, basically she had to leave to go to work and was like, I hope you get to feeling better today, but, you got to take care of yourself. And, my wife was just thinking I was just hungover, and I just kind of overdone it again. And because this had happened multiple times, I'd had pancreatitis multiple times. We both didn't know what it was, but we knew it was correlated with my drinking. And I just thought it was just a really bad hangover. So my wife left to go to work that day, and at one point I ended up getting up, and I remember trying to eat something that morning, and I think I tried to eat like some French fries or something. I was trying to eat just something like starchy that was going to be, not really heavy on my stomach, something that just would digest pretty easily, and that I couldn't get them down. And right after I ate a couple, I got up to go vomit. And when I went to the bathroom to throw up, I remember throwing up in the toilet, and when I looked in there, there was black stuff. It was all black. And when I say black, I mean like black. And it looked like coffee grinds. There was just little specks of stuff all over the place. And I was thinking to myself, because I remember asking my wife if she could give me a Coke that morning. And I would drink Cokes from here to there, just regular Coca-Cola, because it would settle my stomach, or I would drink Sprite sometimes. But I remember asking my wife for a Coca-Cola that morning, and I drank the Coca-Cola thinking that was going to settle my stomach. And when I threw up and I saw that black stuff, I'm thinking to myself, that's just a Coke that I'm throwing up. And it kind of didn't, settle in my stomach correctly or something. It just looks weird, whatever. Well, that kept happening that whole day. I kept vomiting, black stuff kept coming out every time. And I've talked about this, but it just had the strangest smell to it. And I just can't, there's no way for me to put my finger on it. It almost had like a floral smell to it. It's not like a sickening, like a sickly sweet smell is the only way I can describe it. I kept throwing that. That's just a sickly sweet smell. Is what it smelled like, and I kept throwing that up all day long. And my wife was texting me and calling me throughout the day and asking me how I was doing, and I kept telling her I'm doing okay, I'm all right. I just didn't want to go to the hospital or to the doctor, and I thought that this was gonna pass like it passed every other time. I thought, I won't drink, and give this a week, it'll go away. Well, it didn't. And towards the later in the day, I had gotten so weak, and I didn't realize that I was bleeding internally and I was throwing up blood. And I had bled so much over that period of time that I was completely out of breath. I couldn't breathe. Every time I would take a breath, it just felt like the air wasn't going in. And I just laid there in the bed, and my wife had put a trash can beside the bed for me that morning. And at one point in the day, I couldn't even get up to go to the restroom anymore to throw up, and I was just throwing up in that trash can. And for a few hours, I was actually leaning over and throwing up into the trash can. And then it got to a point where I was getting so weak where I stopped leaning all the way over. I just kind of just did like this and just kind of threw up off the side of the bed. I just couldn't manage to get myself over far enough to throw up into the trash can. I was just kind of trying to like turn my head enough to where it would go into the trash can, and it wasn't. It was going all over the floor. You know, a little bit was going in there, but it was going all over the floor. It's getting all over the bed, and I was so sick I couldn't even get myself up anymore. And then it got to the point where I was so weak where I was just vomiting all over myself. I remember just laying in the bed, and I just was kind of laying like this, and when I would get sick I just threw up, and it just went all over. And my wife got home that night probably about 7 o'clock or something like that. When she walked in the bedroom, you know, the first thing she could smell that smell. And then she turned the light on and looked, and the whole bed was covered in black vomit. It was all over the floor. It was everywhere, and it was all over my clothes. I remember exactly what I was wearing that day. I had a white t-shirt on. It was completely covered in vomit. And my wife said, "You're going to the hospital right now. Like, you have to go." So my wife called my mother, and you know, my wife had my kids there, and they had just gotten home from school. She called my mom and said, "Look, this is what's going on with him." My mom came over to the house immediately, and my wife and my mom walked me out to the car. I could barely walk. They basically had to carry me out to the vehicle. And I remember getting in my mom's car, and she took me to the hospital. And when we got there, I couldn't walk. My mom had to go get a wheelchair for me. She pulled into the little area, got a wheelchair, wheelchaired me into the hospital, and you know, that it all goes from there. And I just talked about this the other day. You know, my mom rolled me over to where the vending machines were because I was so thirsty. I got a Sprite, tried drinking that, I couldn't. I kept throwing up. And then they took me to the back in the emergency room, and then that's when they did all the tests and everything, took my blood. They told me my hemoglobin was like a 4 at that point. They started doing blood transfusions the minute that I got into the hospital. And that's when the doctor walked in and told me, you know, we're going to do everything we can do for you, but I don't know if this is going to work out. You got a lot of stuff going on. They told me I was in the middle of pancreatitis. They told me my blood sugar was 1100. That's when I found I had diabetes. And then after that, you know, they took me up to the ICU, and I was in ICU for a week. And at that point, that's when all memory goes away. I don't remember anything from that first week in the hospital at all. Absolutely nothing. And that was the period of time that I was hallucinating. I said I was seeing people. People were coming to visit me, they weren't coming to visit me, and all that stuff. And then after that first week, I guess they removed me off the Ativan, and then I started coming to and started knowing what was going on, although I was still really out of it. But like I said, I was looking at pictures this morning and looking at that time period. You know, I got out of the hospital. My daughter graduated from high school like a week after I got out of the hospital. And I was very ill and had to I wasn't going to miss her graduation. So I went to her graduation, very sick. I remember coming home that night, and then I progressively got a little bit better. And then I really wanted to try to spend as much time with my children I could that summer. And then I was looking at the pictures of all the stuff that we did that summer, and I did a whole bunch of stuff with my kids, although I felt really, really bad. And I went back to work and started working really hard. And then right there at the end of September is when I got sick again. And I was looking at images of myself in the hospital during that period of time. They had a PICC line in me. I've got pictures of that and everything. I would post some of those pictures during that period of time, but one of the pictures I've got my armband on, and it's got all my information on there. There are some pictures, but a bunch of them have like stuff like with my name on it. Like you can see like the board on the back and stuff like that. I'll go through and see if maybe I can't find some of those images that don't have any of that kind of information on it. And maybe I can post those. But, you know, just looking at those images this morning, it brought back a lot of memories during that period, and a pretty sad period of time. You know, I thought that everything was going to be okay, and ended up... I had a lot more wrong with me than what they initially told me the first time I was in the hospital. But, you know, once again, I was at a local hospital. They just weren't equipped to handle somebody like me. They just aren't. You know, there's just like one GI doctor in the town that I live in, and he's not the best doctor in the world. Once I finally got sick the second time, which I guess, you know, looking back on it now, it's a good thing that I did, because all this stuff got discovered after I got sick the second time. Who knows what might have happened to me if I just kept going. And I remember like trying to work, and I just kept getting so winded. I was so tired. I remember one time, like, I was on the ground and I tried to get up. I had the most difficult time just getting up off the ground, just trying to pick myself up. And I remember thinking to myself, like, why am I so weak? Like, it's not making any sense. I remember the doctor telling me, he said, it's going to be a month before you start feeling better from this. And, you know, this was like 3 months after the fact, and I still wasn't feeling well. I was still so tired, fatigued. I just kept pushing through it. I just bustled through it every single day, thinking that this is going to improve, and it didn't. And that, like I said, then I finally ended up getting sick again, and then all this stuff got discovered. But that was the time period from my last drink, and then, you know, ending up in the hospital, and then going from there. And you know, once again, guys, if you have any of these things, you're throwing up blood or any of that stuff, don't waste time like I did. Don't stay at home thinking that it's just going to get better. That pancreatitis can lead to really, really bad complications. There's a lot of stuff that can stem from it. And if you're experiencing that, if you're getting the really bad back pain, really bad stomach pain, you're throwing up blood, you're just so fatigued you can't even get up and walk around, please go see a doctor, especially if you've been drinking heavily. You just never know. And, you know, if you're having that back pain like that and the really bad stomach pain, it's probably pancreatitis. And you definitely need to go see a doctor, because they can help you. And like I said, you know, one of the most important things they could do for you is give you fluids. You really need IV during that period of time, because you do not need to be drinking or eating anything if you're in the middle of pancreatitis. It's just going to exacerbate it and make it worse. But anyway, that's it for today, guys. I just wanted to talk about that time period, and someone asked me to talk about it, and I figured, why not? So thank you for watching today's video. I really do appreciate it. And until tomorrow's video, I will see you guys then. I love y'all so much. Bye.